Traditionally, big schools in college football all had big games yesterday. These are some of them. They all have something in common. None of them won. Let's start the show.
You're tuned in to the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
Normally, this is the part of the show where I say it's a good morning, but everything seems to be going wrong around the studio. And I say that we had a big day in college football, but yesterday was a big day in sports. We've got hockey. The Bruins get revenge at home against the St. Louis Blues in the NHL. We've got baseball. World Series is going on. The NBA has started, but I'm at the point where I'm like, who really cares? We have NFL football today. It's a Sunday morning live on YouTube here in the first round. And we had huge college football games yesterday, big marquee games. But I want to do something different this morning. Let's get it started with our wrap-up, talking about teams that nobody's talking about in college football. SMU the other night was Shane Buechele, the Texas transfer quarterback, goes to 8-0. Minnesota gets it done yesterday at home. They're 8-0. 52-10 against Maryland. PJ Fleck is rowing that boat. Baylor, 7-0. Who would have thought Baylor would be 7-0 at this point in the season? They have good wins against Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and at Kansas State. Baylor 7-0. Nobody's talking about them. Other teams that no one's talking about that are doing good. Appalachian State, do you even know where they're at? They're in West Virginia, 7-0. They've beat North Carolina with a solid road win, and they've won 17 in a row. Cincinnati, 6-1. Wake, 6-1. Cincinnati, they're 6-1 with a win against Tulsa, Houston, and UCF. And what about Navy? Let's give the service academies a little bit of love. Head coach Ken Niumatalolo, he has got Navy at 6-1. I love what he's done with that program. Other big games, let's get to them right now on our recap Sunday morning. The number one team in the country, Alabama, brings in Arkansas. There's a QB controversy in Alabama. Yeah, I don't think so. Mac Jones goes for 3 touchdowns, 48-7 in a very close game at home for Alabama. They get the win. Auburn goes on the road to LSU, 23-20. Joe Burrow goes for 321 yards and 1 touchdown. I'm not sure he's my number one Heisman guy. I can tell you one thing. My previous number one, Jonathan Taylor, out. Ohio State at home in a big game against Wisconsin. I think they showed how good they are. They might be my number one. They get it done at home in the rain, 38-7. The story here has been all year for Ohio State. Their quarterback play from Justin Fields, not yesterday. A guy you might not know about, Chase Young, called the Predator. 4 sacks, 5 for tackles for loss. J.K. Dobbins, 20 rushing attempts for 163 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think they're my new number one. Oklahoma in the biggest upset so far of the year that I think goes on the road to little New York, Manhattan. Kansas State beats them 48-41. The story here is the quarterback for Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, 4 rushing touchdowns. They go for over 213 yards rushing, which seems like against a defense that can't do anything. They reminded me of Texas. I don't even want to talk about Texas right now. Penn State gets a solid win on the road at Michigan State, 28-7. Sean Clifford throws for 4 touchdowns. He's super solid. They're going to be in the top 5 after today. Other big games. Michigan at home destroys Notre Lame, 45-14. Notre Dame was never in this game. There was just a rainstorm, but they just couldn't get their offense going. Their defense couldn't stop a truck that has 4 flat tires and an elephant sitting on it. This is exactly what I keep saying about Notre Dame. I think Brian Kelly is 3-11 now against top 10 teams. He's 18-20 against top 20 teams. Michigan was ranked 19th. Look for them to go up and Notre Dame to drop. Great game late on the West Coast that a lot of people might not have seen. Oregon 37-35 over Wazoo. The story here wasn't Oregon's awesome defense. They give up 35 points and over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns to Wazoo quarterback Anthony Gordon. He's leading the country right now in QBR. TCU destroys a hapless defense of Texas, 37-27 at home. Did anybody see those TCU uniforms? Purple, pink, and black. Who came up with that combination? I didn't like it. Like we said, Minnesota gets it done at home, 52-10 over Maryland. They're undefeated right now, and nobody's talking about Minnesota. I like them. Arizona State and the Fighting Herminators go on the road and get blown out until the fourth quarter. Make a slight comeback. They lose to UCLA, 32-42. UCLA is 3-5 right now, and for having such a terrible start as they did, they're kind of starting to put it together. MLB Baseball, the World Series, is back to 2-2. Bregman gets 5 RBIs yesterday. Houston gets the win at the Nationals, 8-1. I still love my team, Houston. Hashtag take it back. I think they are going to take it back. I still like them to win it. NFL news. Drew Brees comes back after 5 weeks off. Teddy Bridgewater, we talked about on Friday, has been doing a yeoman's work. But Brees comes back today. He will get the start for the Saints. Matt Ryan out. There'll be a lot of people in Atlanta out in the next couple weeks. Probably their head coach, Matt Schaub, in his 79th year out of Virginia, will start for the Atlanta Falcons. Philly goes on the road to Buffalo. This has got to be a must-win for Philadelphia. The Cleveland Kardashians come into Gillette. I hope they have their game faces ready because they're going to be playing the Patriots, who are red hot, especially on defense right now. We'll be breaking that game down. Kyle Allen to get the start again for Carolina at San Francisco. San Francisco's undefeated. Stories around the NFL right now about Tom Brady leaving the New England Patriots. I mean, how many people are doing drugs? He's not leaving the Patriots. This seems to be catching some traction, but we know how the internet is. It's Kardashianville. You don't know what's real and what's not. I'm putting this one in the category of not real. And today we're wearing the Negro League jerseys. We're going to start a little series over the next couple weeks where we talk about Negro League teams and some of the players that nobody's probably heard of that were some of the best players ever to play baseball. But because they were black, they never got a chance to play in the major leagues. Chris and I will be talking about that today. Chris, I haven't even had my coffee this morning. I'm just going to say, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Just making it.
You're doing better than me.
I'm barely making it.
You got your fade clipped up.
Hey, man, had to, man.
It looks good.
I know.
You're looking way better than I am. You're probably feeling way better than I am.
Yeah, man. Had to get that wool taken off, man. Could be looking like your sheep outside, man.
Yeah, you're right, man. I don't know. There's just some days when you wake up where it seems like it's Murphy's Law. Like everything is going to go wrong. And that's been this morning.
It happens, man. It happens every day.
Every day? Well, it doesn't happen every day for me.
For me, it seems like anything that can go wrong, it does.
What?
It does,
Okay,
man.
come on. Let's put out a positive vibe. I'm talking about one day out of my life that hasn't gone good for the past 2 hours. We don't want, open up the suicide watch hotline here.
Nah, man, I'm not trying to.
I know a couple weeks ago it was like your car broke down, then the mechanics lost the keys. And
Yeah, man. I'm still dealing with that. I just had to get an invoice yesterday.
Yeah?
Yeah, $300 for one key.
Yeah. My alarm doesn't go off. I wake up. I put on my clothes backwards in the dark, and, then the dog is barking, and here we go. It's just like, then the lighting is off, and this house has ghosts maybe, man. Maybe you know what? That's what it is. I should be Sam Darnold for Halloween. I'm seeing ghosts. So, yesterday in college football, I named off a bunch of teams that are doing great. SMU with Shane Buechele at quarterback, right. The Texas transfer. They're 8-0. Minnesota 8-0. Nobody's talking about PJ Fleck rowing the boat. Baylor 7-0. App State, they've won 17 in a row.
Right. Before
you say they're a small school playing other good small schools. Plus they have wins like Baylor. Baylor's 7-0. They went on the road to Iowa State, a solid team, top 25 team, beat them, beat Oklahoma State, beat Kansas State at Manhattan, who beat Oklahoma yesterday. Baylor's 7-0. ESPN and the other company, nobody wants to talk about them. App State 7-0. They beat North Carolina on the road.
Right.
17 in a row, nobody's talking about them. Navy. I mean, I just love the job that head coach Ken Niumatalolo has done there in the last, I think he's been there 11 or 12 years. Had a big offer to go to Arizona, didn't take it. Right. And for being one of the naval academies where it's really hard to recruit there, I mean, you want to talk about niche recruiting. Yeah. I mean, there's only about 15 guys in the whole country that can get into Navy and want to go that route with their career, which is highly honorable. They're 6-1 right now.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at all of those teams that you're talking about, I mean, those coaches are more like those blue blue collar coaches who's all about getting it done. They're character coaches, so you don't have all those issues and branding things like you have like with Oklahoma or some of the big name schools. So of course you're not going to get as much traction as you get for ESPN. I mean, you look at Minnesota.
But why not? Why doesn't ESPN talk about I know that they had a special on game day yesterday with the O'Brien place kicker kid that was really cool, but they're not talking about what they've actually done on the field. Exactly. They're 8-0. Yeah. Wake is 6-1. When was the last time Wake was 6-1? I must have been a fetus.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I mean, Wake, this was the fastest they've ever got to 6 wins this season. So I don't know why ESPN's not talking about them. I mean,
I don't know. I just like to see. I wanted to start the show a little bit different. I know there was big stories. Oklahoma loses. Auburn LSU was a big game. Michigan absolutely destroys Notre Lame. I mean, what's new there? Those are all the big stories. But I would like to see CBS, Sportsline, Fox, FRS1 or the regional coverage talk a little bit more about some of these small schools that we have never seen. I can't remember the last time I've seen so many small schools either undefeated or in the top 25 as you do this year.
Right. And you see that because now you're starting to see these smaller schools being able to recruit some of these players that, the bigger schools are missing out on.
Taking
some of
these
right.
Yeah.
These diamonds in the rough, and these guys are actually being able to play.
Yeah, it was really cool to see ESPN College Game Day yesterday in South Dakota. I mean, it is a little bit harder to get into it because you don't know anything about it. But, it's cool to sit there and learn about it. And now I know a little bit more about South Dakota State and North Dakota State, who got the win yesterday. I'm not going to be following them a whole lot more. And I know it doesn't move the needle on the Nielsen ratings. But these kind of stories are cool because we've got to look at these smaller schools and I think give them props.
Yeah, I mean,
props to my peeps for these schools, man, that are 8-0. Minnesota. When was the last time Minnesota was 8-0?
And that was the point that PJ Fleck made last night in his press conference. I mean, you have BAMA and LSU coming, but you have Penn State playing Minnesota that same week. Nobody's really talking about that game. 2 undefeated teams going head to head just because they're in the Big Ten. And again, it's because of the branding of the Alabamas and the LSU over the last few years that's given them that edge over these 2 undefeated teams as well.
Yeah. Speaking about Alabama, we heard this week about the quarterback controversy. Yeah, right. I mean, some guy, it's just so stupid. Some kid named Mac Jones that I've never heard of comes in, throws for 3 touchdowns, puts up 48 points against Arkansas, who's not that good. But it's like, quarterback controversy, please. I mean, how is Alabama going to bounce back with 2 out? Well, they just went out and put up 41-point victory on, an SEC team. Now, Arkansas isn't, blowing the doors off anybody or expecting a New Year's Day bowl game, but I mean, Alabama just keeps rolling. It's just like the Patriots. It's like next man up.
Exactly. I mean, that was a practice game for these guys. I mean, it was more of a practice for these wide receivers to run their routes. I mean, this is Arkansas we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right. So Auburn goes on the road to LSU. I'm starting to get a little tired of LSU. There's a lot of LSU coverage, and people are talking about Joe Burrow for the Heisman. Let's pump the brakes on that one. But Auburn, I got a couple things going through my head. How good is Bo Nix going to be in a couple years when he has some experience behind him? Right. Auburn stuck with LSU all day long and only it was 23-20. Joe Burrow, 321 yards and 1 touchdown. The real story with LSU was their running game. Right. But again, their defense was fairly solid. I still don't think LSU has a lights-out, shut-down defense. But they get a solid win at home, and then we look forward to 2 weeks from now when they play Bama, and hopefully 2 will be back, and that's game of the century too. Yeah,
that's game of the century, but again, neither one of those defenses are what we're used to seeing. When you look at that game, you're going to see Bama's going to put up points, LSU's going to put up points. And, it's going to be – I think it's going to be kind of similar to that Florida game that happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah, when tight and close with a lot of points.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, right now, I think there's a top 4 in the country. Clemson is quietly really good again. I mean, not that they dipped off or fell off. They're the defending national champs. But, there was all kinds of questions like Lawrence is throwing more – interceptions. They're not scoring as many points. They're not looking fantastic and blowing teams out and then cruising to a victory. What they're doing is taking their time and then blowing them out in the 4th quarter. Who really cares? I think it's Clemson, Ohio State, LSU, and Bama
Yeah.
And then there's a drop off, and you can throw the Floridas in there. You can throw, I don't even Georgia. That'll be a good showdown. Next week? Yeah, that'll be a good showdown in Jacksonville. It's like the second tier, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma might be in that second tier, but there's a clear divide now between the top 4 teams. Like if we were starting the playoff today, zero controversy. The 4 teams that I said have got to be the ones that get in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so when you look at those 4 teams, you're looking at you have probably Clemson and Ohio State probably 1A and 1B right now, simply because of the quarterback play. You're looking at Justin Fields, who you knew what you were getting, but you didn't necessarily know what you were getting as far as him being a passer. Mm-hmm. And this year he's showing that he can be a great passer.
And yesterday they relied on their running game.
Yeah.
Master Teague almost went for 100. J.K. Dobbins went for 163 on 20 carries.
Right.
And Justin Fields had a pedestrian day. He kind of came back to earth. That's why a couple weeks ago I was like, why are we talking about this guy for the Heisman? So, number 1 team in the country right now for you.
Number 1 team in the country for me right now, just I'm going to go with LSU simply because they played the tougher schedule so far.
I'm going with BAMA. BAMA by a frog's hair over Ohio State.
Really?
Yeah, really. I mean, Ohio State's defense, it's for real, man.
Yeah, it's for real. But when I look at like LSU and look at what they've played so far,
right?
They've played.
But their defense is giving up tons of points. That's the problem.
Giving up points, but
they give up tons of points to Texas.
They're winning, and they played the tougher schedule though.
I understand your argument, and I'm not going to give you too much feedback on it. But have you seen Chase Young from Ohio State?
From Ohio State, yeah. The defensive end, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, nice
Predator.
Yes, really good player.
Yeah, beyond good player. He's probably one of the best defensive players in the country, 2 or 3. Might be one of the best players in the country overall. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, NFL, anything else. I mean, he's just an absolute beast.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is the best defensive end in the country.
And he was lining up at linebacker yesterday, so I'm going to go Bama 1 because of experience, and I'm going to say that's with a healthy Tua back.
Right.
So I'm going to go Bama 1 because of experience, because of coaching. They've been there.
Right.
Their wide receiving core is awesome. Their defense is close to Ohio State, but I like that coaching factor.
Right.
You know, Ryan Day hasn't coached in big games in the postseason. I know last year he stepped in for Urban Meyer against TCU, which is like, okay, but,
Yeah, Urban already had it going anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Saban has been doing this for a long time.
Exactly.
And he's done it at multiple schools. LSU, Michigan State, now at Bama. That experience factor tilts towards Bama. So I'm going Bama. Mm-hmm. If I had to go 1 to 100, I'd give Bama a 95 or 96. I'm going 94 or 95 on Ohio State. LSU, I'm putting it 90, 91 just because their defense is suspect. And I would put Clemson at 92 or 93. So actually, out of those teams, I'd have LSU 4. Really? I'd have Bama 1, Ohio State, Clemson.
Right.
Again, coaching, experience. They've been in the playoffs the last 4 years.
Right.
I'm going Clemson 3, and I'm going LSU 4.
Yeah.
So give me your top 4.
My top 4 again. I'm still LSU. I'm going Ohio State, Bama, and Clemson. And so
well, I can't make it too bad of an argument against that. We'll see how it plays out. Ohio State just looked incredible.
Yes.
Against the number 1 defense in the country, Wisconsin, against the run.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, J.K. Dobbins goes for 163. Master Teague had about 80 yards, and they were just gashing him. I mean, it was close up until about halftime, and then Ohio State just turned on the running game and blitzed them.
And that's the problem with Ohio. That's the thing with Ohio State is not only do you have to account for running backs, they have decent receivers, but you have to account for the quarterback as well. I mean, you don't contain this guy. This guy can break for another 20, 30 yards on you.
Dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, for the past 15 years, when 2 things come to mind when I say Big 12 football. Offense and lack of defense. And we're seeing both again.
Yeah.
How does that stigma stay with a whole conference? I mean, all these coaches that have been, with these teams in the Big 12 for the past 15 years, this is the same problem. When was the last time there was a dominant defense in the Big 12?
Probably TCU probably about
Gary Patterson?
About 8 or 9 years ago.
Dominant defense?
That was like the best, probably one of the better defenses.
When they went to the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, back that was like 8 or 9 years ago. So
how do they not? I mean, it's just like I don't even have words to describe how bad the defenses are. Like, I can't watch Texas anymore. I have given up on them. I had such high hopes for them this year, and I put it out on my Twitter account. I was like, hey, your defense has to rise up.
Yeah.
I just don't understand. How do you not bring in people that are defensively minded to stop this trend? It's unwatchable. Yesterday, I was watching Oklahoma, and Lincoln Riley, I respect him as a coach. I respected Bob Stoops as a coach.
Yeah.
And the defense is what's letting these teams down. I mean, Kansas State is running all over Oklahoma. What the hell's going on, honestly, man?
Yeah, it boils down to coaching, because they're recruiting well. They're getting top tier defensive linemen, secondary linebackers. They're getting.
How do you let Kansas State run all over you? They absolutely could not stop Kansas State running the ball. The quarterback, who I've never even heard of, Skylar Thompson, goes for 4 touchdowns, and he was doing whatever he wanted on running. I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to get frustrated. I can't understand how you let Kansas State run all day on you. Well, you're playing to get into the playoff, right?
I mean, you were. I mean, it's crazy now that Baylor is the Big 12 savior to get into the playoffs, unfortunately. But
you're right, man.
Seriously, I mean, who would have ever thought Baylor would be that last undefeated team in the Big 12?
Yeah. Penn State, surprisingly and quietly, will move into the top 5, I think, this week. I call it a pedestrian win against a not very good team.
Well, they did what they needed to do. They played a balanced. They had a balanced offense, and their defenses came and played and shut down a pedestrian.
Better than average defense. So Jim Harbaugh saved his job, possibly. He loses a bowl game. He loses to Ohio State. He's still, because we hear this week, it's like he had to come out in his press conference on Monday or Tuesday and talk about, I'm not going to the NFL. I'm not going to the NFL. I mean, who really cares?
Right.
I want your team to get better. And they absolutely showed it yesterday. What a great victory for them at home in the rain. Notre Dame is exactly what I've been saying they've been for like 10 years. I actually posted something on Twitter, the first round one on Twitter. And I put up a picture of Lou Holtz, and I said, classy Lou Holtz, 1996, last time Notre Dame was relevant.
And you know what? You're absolutely right.
I know. I mean, they do the same thing every single year. They schedule these directional schools and marginal schools that aren't impact schools, and anytime they go up against somebody good, Clemson, Georgia, this year Michigan's not even that great.
Right.
They get blown out. And then Brian Kelly is sitting there at halftime getting interviewed by Maria Taylor, and she's like, what do you need to do in the second half? It's like everything. You need to do everything better. You're not doing anything right. How is this major organization that gets all this talent and national recruiting and NBC and all the rest of this garbage? You come out and lay an egg again. Like I said, 3-11 against top 10 teams, 18-20 against top 20 teams. That's Brian Kelly.
That's Brian Kelly, but then that's been Notre Dame for the past, 25
Why are they still even – I don't even think they're relevant, but why does anybody even talk about them? Like, when was the last time you did something significant? I don't want you talking to me about, in the last 15 years, we've gone to 2 championship games. And you got blown out and probably shouldn't have even been there.
But again, it's about the branding and the name. I mean,
what's the brand stand for if you're not winning?
Hey, you say that to Dallas Cowboy fans every year. They do the same.
Right, that's my point.
So I mean, it's about the branding. And at one point, it just seems like Notre Dame was America's team at one point.
You know what? They're the Notre Dame Kardashians until further notice. It's like Cleveland Kardashians.
I agree with
all the talk, 0 results. I'm over them. I'm so done with them. Oregon escapes with a victory, 37-35. What happened to their defense? I don't know. I watched that game. Wazoo looked good. Wazoo's defense was actually good. For giving up 37 points, they were fairly solid. It was only 17-17 at halftime, right. And we don't think of Wazoo as a defensive team, and they were doing what they wanted on offense. God. Mistakes, first half, interception in the end zone by Wazoo.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff cost them that game. But the fact that they were even in the game, that was one of my teaser specials. And I'm surprised you didn't even bring up my streak is over. I took Wisconsin on my teaser special, and I took Wazoo on my teaser special.
Hey.
One of them came through, so I'm 11-1 on the year on my teaser specials. But Oregon's defense, gone. Out the door yesterday.
I predicted that Friday that offense is so wide open. It spreads that defense out. It's hard to contain when you have someone who's going to spread you out, who you have a decent running game, and then you have somebody that's going to pass 40 or 50 times. That defense is going to get tired eventually.
Yep. We appreciate everybody checking us out. You've got a lot of things that you could be doing, but you're checking us out on YouTube Live this morning. Thanks to all our supporters. Special shout out to all our followers in California. We appreciate the support, and we send our love back to you. If you want to be a part of the first round, check us out on YouTube anytime. We've got archived videos. You can get a hold of the show at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at thefirstraund1. Moving on to the World Series. Did you catch the game last night?
I caught like a couple of innings, yeah.
Houston's back in it.
Unfortunately, yeah.
What do you mean unfortunately? Are you saying this because they knocked out your Yankees and I took Houston in the World Series?
No, I just want to see the shock on everybody's face if Houston was to lose this thing.
Oh, no, I want to see good baseball.
Well,
and Houston plays good baseball.
Yeah, they do play good baseball, but it was just when you're looking at the first two games of this series, it was all Washington.
I know. That was just such a phantom thing. Giving up 17 runs in your first two games at home with lights-out starters, Cole and Verlander, not getting the job done. Then you go to Washington. It's like, this is the series nobody wants to win at home.
That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. But now it's 2-2. Bregman has 5 RBI night last night. The series is tied 2-2. Houston beats him 8-1 last night in a very convincing win.
Yeah.
A lot of guys chip in on the pitching staff to hold the Nationals. The Nationals had opportunities.
Yeah, they did.
Runners in scoring positions, they must be going batting under 200. I don't know what the stat is, but they couldn't get anybody across the plate, obviously, only getting 1 run yesterday. And now you got to go back to Houston, and you got Verlander and Cole again. I mean, they could close it out in the next 2 games. It's a 3-game series now.
It can, but this is baseball. I mean, going on the road and winning is a possibility. It happens all the time. So,
but I think Houston, so we don't think of home field advantage really in baseball that much.
Right.
Obviously not in this series. But I think Houston is one of those teams that has a real edge in home field advantage. I mean, those fans are awesome out there.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, is you won in Houston twice if you're the Nationals, and you beat Verlander and Cole consecutively.
Right.
In Houston.
Yeah.
What are the chances that happens again, that you beat Verlander and Cole in consecutive games again? I just can't see it happening. Can you?
I can't see it happening, but again, it just depends on what Verlander you have that game.
Yeah.
And I mean, Cole's going to come out. He's going to be a solid starter. So it just depends on what Verlander you have.
Well, the Verlander that's been in the playoffs so far has been giving up 3 or 4 runs early in the game and then being solid. We saw that in the Tampa Bay series. He comes out, I think, in game, 3 or 4.
Right.
Gives up 3 or 4 runs in the first and then settles down and goes another 6 innings.
Yeah.
Same thing in the World Series. Same thing in the ALCS. Yeah. I'm obviously hoping that he's solid because I want Houston to win. I've got money on Houston. But I just can't see Washington, for as great a story as they are and as much as I love them being the representative in the National League, and for those DC fans,
right?
I can't see them beating Cole and Verlander or one of those guys, and then a combination of next man up in Game 7. It'll be all hands on deck if it's Game 7 pitching wise. I mean, they might start Osuna for all I know. Everybody's got to be ready. I just can't see them taking 2 games from those two pitchers.
I don't think they'll take 2, but I believe that they have the ability to at least split that series, to take it to a Game 7. Though.
So beat Verlander or
Cole
in the next 2 games.
Yes.
That's not too much of a stretch. I could see that happening. What's your prediction on the rest of the series?
I think this series could possibly go to 7, to be honest with you.
It could. I'm going to say Houston
7.
in 6. I think the pitching shows up and the experience. I think that the 2 out of the next 3 possible games are in Houston.
Yeah.
But I think Houston closes it out in Washington, that's so amazing because to win 4 games against a team that's obviously good, they're in the World Series, 4 games in a row. I think that would be an amazing statement for Houston.
Yeah, it would. It definitely would.
Yeah, it would validate their run this year. Give me 1 second. Going to the NFL, Drew Brees comes back. They've got a road game against the Cardinals today, who are surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I mean, Cliff Kingsbury's got to be happy right now with how Kyler Murray is, his maturation rate. And they've got a road game. Teddy Bridgewater has filled the gap while Brees has been out. This is what I question. I don't think because Brees is in there that they're just going to be at a peak level. I think that, I don't expect a great game out of him. And I think Sean Payton, who's one of the best coaches in the NFL, I think he's going to manage him. Hopefully Alvin Kamara will be playing today. Right. And that is a huge asset for them. How do you see the game breaking down, though?
Again, I'm with you on that. I think the game is going to be kind of close. I think he is going to manage Drew Brees. And also, hopefully if Kamara is playing, they're able to have a balanced offense. But I think he's going to try to get the ball out to Michael Thomas and let him do his thing on the outside.
And you got to use Kamara.
And you got to use him.
I think he's the biggest asset. He can run it. You can get him on some screens.
Exactly. Set him out in
bubble routes.
Yeah.
Yep. 10-yard ins, 5-yard ins. One of the games that you and I were talking about, Philadelphia at Buffalo, on Friday's show, we talked about how Buffalo is one of the surprise teams in the NFL. 5-1. Who would have thought that the Buffalo Bills would have been 5-1 at this point in the season? And their only loss was a home loss to the Patriots, which they played tooth and nail down to the fourth quarter.
Yeah. And this is a must-win for Philly. But the problem that Philly is running into is they have 6 injuries to these key players. I mean, you have Sproles out. You have Nigel Branham out. You have Jason Peters out. So you have players in these key areas that
Deshaun Jackson.
I didn't see him on the injury report, but he's out too. So when you have these players out, that's key to your offense and your defense. You're going to have issues, and unfortunately, if they can't muster up enough offense, the Bills they're going to move to 6-1.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this. The Bills actually have a solid defense.
Yeah, they have.
I can't believe I'm actually saying that. And what's shocking is again, we've talked about this before. Super Bowl teams within a couple years, the deterioration rate. Philly was just in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
And look at them now. I mean, when I saw that game against Dallas, I was like, what the heck has happened to this team? I mean, the wheels have fallen off.
Yeah, the wheels are falling off. They don't have a solid running game anymore.
Right.
You're having to depend on Carson Wentz to pass the ball. And
to Alshon Jeffries?
Exactly.
I mean, his best years are in the rearview mirror.
Right, and he's not necessarily healthy this year either. So, if that's going to be your key to your offense winning these games, you're going to have issues. And unfortunately, I see Dallas actually running away in the AFC East.
NFC East?
NFC East.
Oh, yeah.
NFC East, yes.
That's a tire fire, that whole division right there. I mean, who's good in that division? That's my point. Exactly. And Dallas hasn't been exactly solid. So to say you're the best team in a bad division, whatever. I mean, they're first or second round in the playoffs and out. I don't think they're built to win. My favorite team to talk about, the Cleveland Kardashians, goes on the road to play at Gillette against my favorite team, the current Super Bowl champions of the world.
Right. No argument.
Here's what I don't understand, if we're talking realistically, is that a lot of the talk about this game is what a blowout it's going to be because Cleveland is so dysfunctional.
Right.
I think Cleveland is dysfunctional, but I think they keep it close in this game. And if I was going to take a teaser pick, which I'm not, I would tease up. What's the line on this game? Do you know? 10.5?
10.5, yeah.
I would take the 16.5. That's 2 touchdowns plus.
Really?
Yeah, I look, it's just a feeling because the NFL's freaky as anything. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So I think this game's going to be closer than what a lot of people say.
I can go back to that stat with New England Patriots against first and second year quarterbacks. I think they're going to confuse Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield hasn't shown me that he can actually read defenses the way that he should to be a second-year starter.
Yep.
And so, I think New England's defense confuses Baker Mayfield. They isolate OBJ on one side. He barely gets any receptions. Mm-hmm. And I believe New England's with Tom Brady.
So you put Stephon Gilmore on OBJ.
Yeah, lock him down.
And then you got Hightower and Van Noy and linebacker, and you show a 6 or 7 man front against Chubb running the ball.
Exactly.
Yep.
I don't see.
I can see a lot of that happening today.
So, like I said, with Baker Mayfield making as many mistakes as he has all season long, I don't see them being in this game.
Yeah, is the real problem in Cleveland all the drama? Is it inconsistent play for Baker Mayfield? Or is it what I think it is, which is Freddie Kitchens, the head coach? I think he's just in over his head. They have a lot of talent. I mean, you give Bill Belichick that team, you've got 5 or 6 wins right now, I think, honestly. I just think that I put most of the blame on the head coaching. It starts with Freddie Kitchens there.
Yeah, I think that team actually needed a veteran coach. You're bringing in a first-year coach who hasn't really hasn't had any head coaching experience to take on a team that has that many personalities with the Baker Mayfield, the OBJs, and defense guys on defense and whatnot.
Myles Garrett, awesome defensive end, but the problem is he's a penalty magnet.
Right. So when you have that many personalities on there, your first-year coach. It's not going to go well. It's not going to bode well for you at all.
Yeah, that's why I call them the Cleveland Kardashians, because it's all talk and 0 results. It's the same thing as Notre Dame. Green Bay goes on the road to Kansas City. Mahomes isn't playing. Green Bay's laying 4. I love Green Bay in this game.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have a field day with this Kansas City defense.
Yeah, some of the stuff on the internet has been about how KC's defense rose up against Denver.
It's Denver.
Okay, yeah, exactly. It's Denver. I mean, Denver's like a free spot on the bingo board as far as I'm concerned right now. They're an absolute, this is one of those I'd rather snort anthrax than be on the Denver defense right now. They're so bad. I like Green Bay minus the 4, even though it's a road game.
Yeah.
Their defense is terrible. I think their offense can hold a Kansas City offense without Mahomes. I think this is a slam dunk of the weekend.
Yeah, I think the game it's close. I take you with the 4. I think the game is close, but again, I believe Green Bay pulls this one out.
Kyle Allen to get the start for Carolina at San Francisco, who surprisingly is undefeated. Yeah. Nobody saw that coming. We don't know what's going on with Cam. It seems like there's a level of disinterest, I think, from Cam.
Well,
and Kyle Allen has played good.
Well, I mean, Cam went out with this foot injury that he didn't tell anybody he had in the beginning of the season.
Right,
so
it's just so weird, right?
It really is, and so it has you wondering. I mean, we know Cam will never get back to the Cam of what was that 2015, and he would never get back there.
No, his best years are in the rearview mirror.
That's the end of that. So,
but they're 4-2 right now.
Yeah,
and it seems like Kyle Allen is a more than serviceable, quarterback.
Right.
And you've got Christian McCaffrey there, who's got to be top 4 for MVP in the league.
Yes.
And then that's it.
Exactly.
So can they score enough points against one of the lockdown defenses in the NFL to keep this game close? Because for some reason, I think this game is going to be close.
It's going to be a close game simply because San Francisco is missing so many weapons on the offense. But
I mean, who are their weapons on offense? I can't even. This is the team that's doing the most with talent that is like I've never even heard of half these people.
Yeah, you really haven't. I mean, because I was looking at the injuries at these wide receivers that were out, and I'm like, who are these guys? I've never heard of them before. And so those are some of those key slots that's missing for Jimmy Garoppolo. Mm-hmm. And so I think that defense is going to do enough to shut down Christian McCaffrey, even if they try to put him out in the slot. I think that defense is good enough to lock him down at the slot as well. So I think San Francisco will pull out that win.
So we were talking about New England. They invite the Cleveland Kardashians into Gillette today, and the stories this week about, and it's been the last couple weeks, starting with Adam Schefter saying, Tom and Giselle are selling their house in Worcester for $35 million, which I'm just like, okay, and then his trainer is selling his house. I can't imagine with the loyalty factor to the Crafts and the legendary aura that Tom Brady has wanted and has built with one organization. I mean, I opened up ESPN today and there was an article about him possibly going to LA. Is there any traction? I can't believe there's any traction to this. And this isn't me hating or not wanting Tom to leave. I just can't believe that there can be anything to him leaving New England.
If he's leaving New England, he's leaving because he's planning to retire. He's not leaving to go to another team, no.
I can't see that happening. I mean, if he goes to L.A., who's picking him up? The Rams? The Chargers at 42? They're going to start building after Rivers with a guy that's 42 years old? I mean, I can't.
Again.
Am I out of my mind?
Again, if that's the case upon it, Brady's leaving, that means he's planning to retire.
Right.
It's not that he's leaving the Patriots organization. I mean, you ask me, Brady is going to be buried at the 50-yard line in Gillette Stadium.
Right.
He's not going anywhere.
And other cities, Carolina was mentioned, Chicago. Mitchell Trubisky obviously hasn't worked out. I mean, you want to talk about moving up to the number 2 slot to take somebody who hasn't panned out?
Yeah.
I can't even get into the Chicago thing, but I mean, I can't see. Why would you go to Chicago?
Exactly.
Why would you go to Carolina? Why would you do that to your? I don't know. Understand. Why would you do that to your legacy?
I don't know. I mean, I don't see it. I don't see him having that Joe Montana moment going from San Francisco to Kansas City.
Right.
I don't see that.
I kind of look at that as a downer, right? Like when Joe Montana left, I looked at that like you're just kind of holding on at the end there.
Right.
I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Again, if he leaves, he's done. That means he's hanging up the cleats.
That's the way I'm breaking it down too, and it's not because I'm a fan and I don't want him going somewhere else. I just don't see it happening. They put Josh Gordon on the IR. In 2 weeks, they're going to release him. They have to make cap room for Mohamed Sanu that they just brought in, which I think is a plus. In case you're wondering, so Sunday mornings we usually do a Sunday morning formal dress on the first round. But today we decided to go with Negro League jerseys to honor some of the Negro League teams. I'm wearing the Pittsburgh Crawfords, who were from 1931 to 1940, and I thought it would be interesting to go into the next couple weeks, have a little segment about the Negro League teams because a lot of them, if I say millennials in Negro Leagues, they're, it's going to be a racially offensive thing. They don't even know that there was a league called the Negro Leagues,
right.
Let alone that most of the greatest baseball players of all time played in the Negro Leagues. Some of them did get to matriculate over to play in the majors, but a lot of them never even did, like Josh Gibson, catcher. He was a 6'1" catcher played in Pittsburgh, also played for the Homestead Grays. And here's the thing about the Negro Leagues. It's hard to validate a lot of the statistics for these guys.
Right.
It just is. Now, supposedly he hit more than 800 home runs. He was called by many people in baseball the greatest home run hitter ever.
Right.
I know he's the only man to hit a ball out of Yankee Stadium. Yeah. I know that.
Right.
He also has a supposed career batting average of .356 that's recognized by the Hall of Fame, and he's in the Major League Hall of Fame. Sadly, it had to happen in 1972. But if you don't know about the Negro Leagues or a lot of the guys that played in the Negro Leagues, you have got to look it up because if you're into baseball at all or even history, sports history, some of the greatest athletes ever played in the Negro Leagues. Just for the Pittsburgh Crawfords, we talked about Josh Gibson just now as a catcher. Look up Cool Papa Bell. Cool Papa Bell was one of the best pitchers or players of all time.
Right.
He was so fast. When I've been up to Cooperstown many times, and I've heard a lot of stories, and one of the cool stories I heard about Cool Papa Bell and his speed was he was so fast that at nighttime when they were going in for at their hotel to sleep, he could hit the switch on the light and be in the bed before the light went off.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, that was a good one. Cool Papa Bell, Judy Johnson, Satchel Paige.
Yeah.
Satchel Paige pitched for the Pittsburgh Crawfords. Another guy to look up that I just have all the esteem and respect for in the world is Ted Double Duty Ratcliffe. Double Duty Ratcliffe, because they play a lot of double headers all the time. The more games you played, the more money you made back then. And they used to travel on a bus. And if they could play 2 or 3 games a day against, anybody out there in that town that they were in, they'd play it. Double Duty Ratcliffe is one of the guys. We've got the Negro League, my Negro League piece up here that's got Buck O'Neil, Monty Irving, Judy Johnson's on there, Buck Leonard, the first black manager in Major League Baseball. It's got Satchel Paige up on the top of it, and they're all hand-signed autographs. But these are players that not a lot of people know about.
Yeah, unfortunately, they really don't. And, it's a major part of baseball, Major League Baseball's history, that you have these players that were able to cross over from the Negro Leagues and actually, have an impact on the game. I mean, you look at Satchel Paige. He came in. He was the oldest. Right now, he's currently the oldest rookie to ever play in Major League Baseball. He started, he pitched his first game at the age of 42. In Major League Baseball. I mean, can you imagine a 42-year-old Ricky?
Right, and he reminds me of Nolan Ryan because he still had lights out stuff.
Exactly.
Past 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
Yes, and that's one of those, and those are some of the things that a lot of people really don't know and don't really recognize about Major League Baseball. I mean, when you think of Major League Baseball, you start thinking about the Babe Ruths, you start thinking about the Willie Mays and those players. I mean, Jackie Robinson. I mean, the mainstream players that you know from Major League Baseball, but you have to understand that history to understand, how that stuff came.
Yeah, you never hear about the cool Papa Bells and Judy Johnsons.
Exactly.
I mean, Josh Gibson. I think if I'm gonna, and you know what, next week, Friday night, our top 5 has to be top 5 baseball players of all time. Oh. Josh Gibson's got to be on that list.
Yeah, it has to be. And
no one has ever heard of this guy unless you are really, really into Major League Baseball history and Negro League history, which I am. All this memorabilia up on our wall here in the St. Jude studios. I've been collecting memorabilia for probably 30 years, which I just aged myself, and that sucks. But the last 10 years or so, I've really been getting into the Negro League stuff and appreciating what these guys did. Yeah. And you don't even know how much is working against them. Yeah. Trying to find hotels, you're traveling around in a bus. The only way you're going to make money is you get to the next team. No promotion. There was no internet. There was no circuit training. There's no nutrition, coaches. There was so much working against these guys socially, athletically, and yet they're some of the best players. You can put their numbers up. I don't like comparing players from different eras.
Right.
You and I have talked about this before. I like to compare my qualifications for Hall of Fame in Major League Baseball. Are you the best player at your position in your era? Yeah. But these guys' stats can be put up against any era, and they're still dominant. Yeah. And they had so much to overcome. All the respect in the world to those guys, even the middle-of-the-road guys, to get on a baseball team. Here comes Manny. Hey, Manny. He just woke up. He's sitting behind you the whole show.
I see.
But all respect in the world to those guys for what they did, how they had to do it. Yeah. I think we should get the word out more about some of these Negro League teams, the players, the owners. They actually had a female owner.
Yeah.
I mean, that was amazing. You're talking about in the 30s being black and owning a baseball team?
Hey,
I didn't know that.
Me either. I mean, you look at J.L. Wilkinson, owner of the Kansas City Royals. He actually was one of the first guys to implement the portable lighting system. So these teams can actually play at night. So they can play
more games.
Yeah,
Tell me about the jersey. That's my Kansas City Monarchs jersey. Yeah. You got to show the patches on camera. Man. I mean, I think those are so cool. Kansas City Monarchs. But the other one, Here
we go. The Negro League, Kansas City Monarchs. Actually, they were the longest running Major League Negro League team ever in the Negro Leagues. That team ran from like the 1920s. 1925 all the way up to 1965.
Wow, 65. See, I didn't even know they went to 65.
Exactly.
Because a lot of them dissolved around 40 to 42.
Yeah, they went to 1965. They actually moved from Kansas City up to Michigan. Of all places. I never knew that Michigan would have a Negro League team. They actually kept the name Monarchs as well. They've had players like Satchel Paige,
right?
J.L. Wilkinson, the owner of the Kansas City Monarchs, was actually inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006. And when you look at some of these the stats some of these players had, like I said, Satchel Paige was inducted in 1972. So when you look at these stats and you look at some of the things they did. It's unfortunately that it took all the way to 2000. If you notice, you look at when a lot of these players ended into the Hall of Fame, it was like 2006. Mm-hmm. So if you look at the stuff they were able to contribute to the game, it's sad that it took them that long, almost 50, 60 years for them to be recognized.
Yeah. I've been to it. I believe, unless I'm wrong, it's called the Negro League Baseball Museum.
Right.
It's not a Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I actually ran into the guy when I was there that runs it. I can't remember his name now, and I hate even bringing it up if I don't know his name. But that place, it's in Kansas City, Missouri, which has great barbecue, by the way. But the Negro League Baseball Museum, I spent a whole day in there just checking out. I love memorabilia. I love seeing the real bats and the real cleats and real things, real seats from the the places where they played, and I thought it was amazing. If you ever have a chance and you're in Kansas City and you want to check out something, if you're even into baseball or sports at all, I highly recommend it. It wasn't that expensive. It's really professionally put together. It's on par with the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame.
Right.
And I just thought it was an awesome experience. I think next week we need to wear 2 other jerseys. You know, I was looking up some of the names. There's like the New York Cubans,
right.
the Indianapolis Clowns. I mean, there's so much rich history when it comes to the Negro League baseball teams. I love it. I just find it fascinating. I think we need to get the word out more, like I mentioned, and we're trying to do that on the first round here. What else is going on in the world of sports, Chris?
The world of sports. High school football is taking over the world of sports this week. My first story, it revolves around the teacher strike in Chicago. The teacher strike in Chicago, unfortunately, has left eight prominent teams out of the actual playoffs, and that's due to their bylaws, which basically states if a team is not able to practice for 7 days, they have to be able to practice. They have to be able to practice 3 days after in order to participate in a game. And it's unfortunate that these players have worked this hard to have a teacher strike, take all of this hard work, all of the practice, the blood, sweat, the tears. I mean, you have guys who work their butts off to get to the playoffs, and they can't play in the playoffs simply because of a teacher strike, simply because of politics. And, you know, these guys have really worked hard. They've even went to the judge to actually try to get some of these, to actually try to actually be able to play these games. And the judge, of course, he ruled against them simply because you have to have staff there. So it's unfortunate.
It's a case of sometimes the kids are actually more mature than the adults.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous. That's a good story. The other one is the one that we were talking about last night about the cheating scandal. I mean, I read this, and that's why I texted it to you. I can't even believe this is going on, but bring us up to date on this high school cheating scandal.
So we had a high school cheating scandal where you had a player that was ineligible to play from. He was ineligible, started from the year before previously. He was supposed to sit out one game. He actually came in, changed his name, flipped his jersey to another number, stated he was a freshman starting, and then, of course, he forgot to change his tattoos. They forgot to cover the tattoos. They found out who the guy was, and, of course, the principal, she just voided the whole season and fired the whole staff.
The whole football staff got fired. The whole season is canceled.
It's canceled.
What a stupid move. Those guys, I mean, I can't even. It's the adults, right? It's the kid for going along with it because he knew it was wrong.
Right.
But who's leading him down that path?
It was the head coach. And
right.
The funniest thing, the defense of the head coach was the kids change their numbers all the time.
That's garbage. I'm selling that all day long. And you know what? That's why we got to appreciate the good people that are out there working with our kids, coaching them up in baseball and football, keeping them off the streets, keeping them, athletic, making them a part of the team, making them healthy. And there's so many guys out there and women that are working with our kids, whether it's baseball, football, gymnastics, softball, and giving them this outlet that this is just a small stain. It's the one bad apple, and we should recognize all the great players out there, as far as players, meaning the players in our society and our communities that are actually in the lives and care about the lives of these kids. I managed a couple of teams when I first moved here, and it's very rewarding. It's awesome. That music can mean only one thing. We've come to the end of our show. We appreciate you being here with us live on YouTube. Again, check us out on YouTube if you want to be a part of the show. The First Round RD at gmail.com. I want to thank our support staff. The man on the board, Taylor, son of God. My co-host, Chris Roberts. Thanks for joining us here this morning. El Presidente, Chet Forty, for all of us here in the St. Jude Studios in the First Round. We want to say thank you so much for checking us out. Hit the subscription button. Give us a like. Help us build the First Round up to epic proportions. We will be here next Friday, right here live on YouTube. Until then, take care of yourselves, everybody.